certainly they're self-evident. You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything.
No question about it, although President Trump has not been charged with anything. That was President Biden following a ruling from Colorado Supreme Court that former President Trump is not eligible to appear on the state's ballot next year for the events that took place on January 6, 2021. The 4-3 decision was made under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which says anyone who engaged in insurrection is barred from holding office again. Importantly, Trump was never charged with any insurrection and is not facing any charges for insurrection at this point. Trump's legal team is appealing the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court, which constitutional scholars expect to be overturned. Immediately following the decision, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy pledged to remove his name from the primary ballot in Colorado in a show of solidarity with the 45th president. Ramaswamy also called on the rest of the GOP primary field to do the same. In response, the Colorado Republican Party said if this decision stands, they will withdraw from the state's primary election and move to a caucus system. It comes as the Iowa Republican caucus is now just 22 days away. A new Fox Business poll shows President Trump with a commanding lead over the GOP field. We will learn very shortly who the nominee is for the 2024 election in the coming months. Joining me right now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy and his wife, Dr. Apoorva Ramaswamy. Great to have you both. Merry Christmas to you both, and thank you for being here.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Maria.
Vivek, kick us off here. Why did you say you will remove your name from the ballot? Tell us what this decision from the Supreme Court of Colorado means today.
Well, it's an unconstitutional and flagrant violation of the way we conduct elections in this country, Maria. This is not the way we do things in the United States of America. We, the people, are the ones who select our leaders, not unelected cabals of Democrat judges in back offices. Now, the reason I made the statement I did, Maria, is very practical. If every Republican in the Colorado GOP primary also says we're not participating, then this blatant act of election interference has no impact. So I wanted to lead by example to say that if they are going to forcibly remove Trump's name from that ballot, then I would voluntarily remove myself too, and called on Chris Christie and Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis to do the same thing. I have to say I was disappointed to hear radio silence or worse from those other candidates who said they wanted to still collect their delegates. I think there's no point in actually collecting a small number of delegates if we're tolerating this level of blatant election interference. But I am a problem solver. I think that that is one way the Republican Party can solve this problem. And, you know, within minutes of my hearing this, that's exactly what I felt was the right move to make. And so I announced that. And I say this as somebody, Maria, I am running to win this election. It would be a lot easier for me, for us, if Donald Trump weren't in the race to win. But what are we winning for? It's to protect a constitutional republic. And that's the first principle we have to stand for above all. So that's why I made the decision that I did.
Really well said, Vivek. Thank you for that. Taking a leadership stand in the face of all of this. Election interference in plain sight. Dr. Apoorva, I want to ask you about this election and about running. Obviously, Vivek, a first-time politician. You've been by his side the whole time. What have you learned in terms of the business of politics throughout this journey?
I've learned so much because I really didn't know much about this whole process. And what I learned most is how much people across this country actually agree. It's been so beautiful, no matter where we are, even what kind of rooms we're in. People agree on these principles that Vivek is talking about. And they're so excited to be in the room with him, to be inspired by his message. I think that's been so wonderful. There's people who have never, ever identified as a Republican before who are coming out to caucus, volunteering, because they're really inspired by this American message.
And you're a doctor. Tell us what you do. But even there, in your own field, you saw injustices and wanted to be a problem solver like your husband and be at his side.
Exactly. I am a throat surgeon. I'm so fortunate I get to treat cancer survivors who've gone through the scariest thing in the world and have survived. And now we're on the other side. They're dealing with voice and swallowing problems, and I have the privilege of getting to treat them in my day job. what's so important is also how inspiring the people we get to meet on the weekends are. People who are working so hard on their day jobs to earn money for their families, and yet they're so inspired by this country and this mission to do so much on their weekends as well. So it's been really doing both of this through this whole process has been really a great experience.
That is beautiful and so well said by you both. So Vivek, let's expand on that. You've been able to inspire young people. You've talked about you being a leadership voice for young people throughout your entire journey. Same question for you. What you've learned in terms of the business of politics, these political dirty tricks that we see over and over again, and how are you going to bring this over the finish line led by young people? What are you hearing from young people today?
Well, look, one of the things we see from young people, Maria, is that they're hungry for direction and purpose. And this is where I think the Republican Party, if I'm to state it bluntly, I think has grown a little lazy. We will sit here and let the other side offer a vision of race, gender, sexuality, and climate. And we sit here just criticizing that vision, but without offering a vision of our own as a party. What do we actually stand for? Individual, family, nation, God. That actually beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. So Apoorva and I, we go to college campuses. We see college students who don't necessarily think of themselves as Republicans, but when we lay out our shared values, they say, yes, that's a direction I can go. And so young people right now, and that's part of what you see in this rise of anti-Semitism or the rise of wokeism, they are hungry for purpose and meaning and direction. And so far, the Republican Party, I don't think, has been filling that vacuum. Criticizing Biden or criticizing the other side's vision is not enough. We have to offer a vision of our own. Frankly, I think that's why I'm incredibly proud of what Apoorva is doing, the example that she sets for young women and men across this country to say, hey, I'm going to save lives during the week, but I'm still going to speak to what our country's all about as part of this race. That's the standard we want people in this country to hold us to when we're in that White House. To be able to look their own kids in the eye and say, I want you to grow up and be like them. Whoever that is in the White House, I think that that's part of reviving our national character. It's not just policy, and I think that's the one thing I would say is my number one learning, Maria. When I came into this race, I thought it was all about policy, and you and I have talked about it. We have detailed policies for a lot of things, from economic independence to from China, all the way to our own national security, protecting our border, shutting down the deep state. All that's important. But I think half the job of the next U.S. president is to revive our national character, answer who we are, revive the shared values that define this country that we were founded on, and set the example in the way we lead. And I think that's been a learning for me this year, and I think we're ready to lead with wearing that mantle of not just policy, but character and national character as well.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Are you willing to take a job in a Trump administration? Should he ask? Should it go that way? Do you think these legal issues will stop Trump?
So I'll answer all those questions frankly. I think that I'm not a plan B person, Maria. I didn't get to where I am. I'm 38 years old. I've founded multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. We're blessed with the American dream to be able to self-finance and lift this presidential campaign up. I didn't get where I am. Apoorva didn't get where she is by being plan B people. And so I'm actually confident we're going to over-deliver massively at the Iowa caucus. Many of the people supporting us are first-time caucus goers, some of them young people, some of them America First patriots or libertarians who haven't thought of themselves as traditional Republicans who are coming out in droves. And so you mark my words on this. I think we're going to have a major surprise on January 15th. I respect Trump and his accomplishments for this country. Unlike a lot of the other candidates, I'm not sitting here Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. Yeah. But I believe we are the right people to take our America First agenda to the next level. I think it's going to take somebody with fresh legs. Yep. Somebody from the next generation, if I may say it, to lead the next generation.
Great
and
point.
I believe we will be successful in this.
All right. Well said all around. Dr. Apoorva, it's been so nice getting to know you during this interview. We so appreciate the both of you. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.